Hello humanoids, welcome to Halfling Hobbies. I'm your host, Halfling Hannah, and we're here in my amazing new crafting studio. And I thought that today I would do something special. See over here in this little bitty corner over here, I have a 3D printer. I got a Bebo 3D dual extrusion 3D printer and laser etcher for my birthday, which was super awesome. And I was so excited about it because, like you probably, most DMs out there, we have this dream of having a 3D printer, of being able to print our own miniatures, our own creations, our own tabletop terrain and dungeons and tiles and all of this stuff that we can make, right? And so when I got this, I was so excited. I got it out of the box, I got it all together, I set it up, I tested my first little print. You got a little SD card you put in there and it has these first like initial test print stuff. It's like a little cube or whatever. And it printed great. And I was so excited. I was like, all right, let's get into this. Let's print some miniatures. And I was stoked. And then I printed this. Look at that. It's a stump of a leg. This was supposed to be a monk. I think it was supposed to be a monk. And it ended up looking like kind of looks like a tornado, actually. It is all gobby and gooky and was just terrible. And I was like, oh, okay, no big deal. I mean, let's try something else. Obviously that was a bad 3D model. Surely that's what it was. So I tried again and I got this guy. Yeah, just the torso. And then you see where it gets all weird right there? That's where the print failed and just wrapped around my extruder and just completely ruined everything. So I've got legs. Kind of like from Onward? I think that's that new movie. I just got legs. And I was like, well, okay, well, I guess I can do something with that. And then at that point, I stopped, to be honest. I was so disappointed. I was so upset that I couldn't get this to work, and I tried so hard and I gave up. And I didn't touch my 3D printer that I was so excited about for several months. When I got my new studio set up, I pulled the 3D printer out and I was like, all right, we're gonna figure this out. And friends, I figured it out. Once, but that's better than I was at before. And so I just wanted to shoot this little video showing you what I made and what you can make if you stick to it and you figure it out, but also maybe what you should expect if you're getting a 3D printer for the very first time, so that hopefully you're not as disappointed as I am and don't want to throw it out the window multiple times over like I wanted to. So here are my top 5 things that you should know for printing for your very first time. I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be. These are just the things that as a beginner who's got my first successful print, I really wish someone would have told me before I got my hopes up and got super disappointed. So I hope maybe this will help you as well. And maybe you'll have better luck on yours than I did on mine. Make sure to post a comment below when you've done your first 3D print and let me know if this helped at all with those expectations. So here we go. All right, friends, number 1, things I wish someone would have fully communicated with me before I got super excited about my 3D printer was exactly how much time it was going to take to print these. Now, people say that it's gonna take a while, but nobody ever really actually shows you the print time on things. I was like, oh yeah, a couple hours to do something, that's fine. Guys, this brick. So this tile, right? It's a 4x tile. It looks cool. I haven't painted it or done anything to it yet. But this little 4x tile that has the open back where you can stick little magnets or something if you want to. This took 6 hours. 6 hours. I had set up to do 6 of these. So I was like, Think smarter, not harder, right? And I was like, I'm gonna set it up in Cura to do 6 of these at one time. Get them all out of the way, right? 36 hours. Yeah, 36 hours for 6 of these, and then it clogged on me. Gah! It was awful. It clogged on me. After, I don't know, it was like a couple of hours, so it wasn't like 34 hours in, which I guess is better, but I ended up getting these. I ended up getting just little squares out of it, and I was like, you know what, heck, I'm gonna use them. So I'm gonna use them for spell things. I'm gonna maybe put an ink wash on them and use them for spell stuff. I mean, they're solid, they're super flimsy, which actually could be good. And then I'm just gonna sit them over the figures as like spell effect area stuff. Don't waste things, I guess. But I wish someone would have fully communicated that this is going to take hours upon hours upon hours. If you want to build a dungeon set of tiles, you're going to need months of preparation for this. Months, okay? So don't expect as soon as you get your 3D printer to just boom, 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 let's go. I'm gonna have a dungeon ready for next week's session. That is not going to happen, all right? Let's bring those expectations down just a little bit there, okay? Number 2, your purchase of a 3D printer also means that you are going to have to learn a completely new software that is not super user-friendly. So a lot of people use Cura. That's what I have been using, and it is a 3D printing software where you can manipulate the models, you can add little structures, you can add supports and all that kind of stuff. But it's really hard to learn how to do. It's like learning an entirely new software in a language that you don't understand. That's like, we're gonna make that 2B. It's a sub-point of the same thing. People speak things and they know what they're talking about, but we don't know what they're talking about. I have no idea what people are saying. They're like, oh yeah, you need to check the retraction on your extruder. I'm like, English, please. Oh, that was English? Ah, crap. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So you're gonna have to learn a whole new language. You're gonna have to learn a software system. And if you're not great with technology, it's gonna be really hard. And if you are good with technology, it's still a learning curve, and you need to expect that going in. Which leads us into 3 as a part of that, is that settings matter. So you may think, oh, it really doesn't matter all that much, learning this software to be able to do things. It doesn't matter, it's just a print, right? No, settings actually matter a lot. These 3D printers are really intricate pieces of equipment, and they're very finicky. Oh my gosh, they're so finicky. And you have to dial in your settings based on your 3D printer, which nobody can really teach you how to do, because your environment that you're in, the temperature, the humidity, the whatever can change your specific printer. So you're gonna have to create settings that are unique to you. And that can be so difficult to do when you don't understand what you're doing to begin with. So give yourself some grace and some patience, and do lots and lots of test prints before you do anything that you're super excited about. Do basic things first. Don't start off with a super intricate mini and then get upset because it doesn't work. Look at it. Number 4. Most of your problems can be fixed by leveling your plate correctly. The problem is, for a beginner, this is super hard to do. And people skip over this a lot. I think that it just becomes such a part of your routine when you're doing tutorials and videos on 3D printing. It's like, level your plate. You should be able to do it. Beginners, we have no idea how to do this, and it's actually really difficult to try and figure out exactly how to level it correctly to get that paper under there, and how far do you want the paper to touch the extruder, or do you not want it to touch the extruder? Like, what exactly do we need to do here? And it can take a really long time to level your plate, and you're probably going to have problems like I did. I had a really hard time getting my plastic to stick to the plate. I did everything that it told me to do. I used hairspray. I went and bought Aquanet. Who buys Aquanet now? I went and bought Aquanet to put on there because somebody said that would help. Didn't help. I got glue. Didn't help. I got a different brand of glue. That helped until that one 36-hour print. And it's most of the time it's because your leveling is off and it's not getting a good grip on there. But like I said, leveling can be difficult to do your first time around. So again, give yourself plenty of grace, plenty of patience. You are going to have to level your plate several times over before it's actually level. Unless you're better than me. Maybe I just suck at this, I don't know. And then finally, these little guys I showed you before, expect these when you're doing miniatures for the first time. Miniature settings are just really hard to figure out, and I've found that my 3D printer fails a lot on miniatures. I have to really play with it to get it to where it's right, and I've only got one successful print, and it hasn't been on one of these small miniatures. It's a much bigger one, which I'm about to show you. But expect that it's gonna fail a lot until you figure things out, and think of it like you would learning to play an instrument. You're not going to play Mozart's Fifth Symphony or whatever you want to play your very first time picking up the instrument. You have to learn the scales. You have to learn the settings. You have to practice on little bitty, less detailed things to make sure that you have everything the way that it needs to be before you can print something super extravagant and awesome. That being said though, you can print some really cool things. And yes, once you get the printer paid for and everything, they are super cheap. You can print miniatures for like 7 cents a piece and dungeon tiles for like 40 cents a piece, just based on the plastic that you're printing with, which is awesome. Again though, the time thing, keep that in mind. I'm gonna do a whole video on looking at the different kinds of terrain. We're gonna look at WizKid terrain, we're gonna look at Dwarven Forge terrain, we're going to look at making your own out of plaster and making your own out of 3D printing. We're gonna compare all of those and figure out what is the best option for Dungeon Masters. But all of that said, all of that I really wish I would have known before I got super excited and super hyped over having a 3D printer. Now, let's look at what you can create with a 3D printer. I made this mimic off of my 3D printer and painted it and everything myself. So let's look at it right fresh off of the printer. As you can see from this, it's really hard to see details, and I think that's mostly because the filament that I'm using is a bright white. When this runs out, this is the filament that I got with my 3D printer, so hey, why not use free filament, right? I'm gonna get gray filament so that I can see the details a little bit better, because I ended up actually filing off some details that I wish I wouldn't have because I simply couldn't see them, and I thought that they were defects, not details. So as you can see from this, we also have some stringing going on. That's where you have those string that kind of just pulls off. We also have a little bit of failure on one of the tooth of the mimic. It didn't stay on there real good, and so it kind of looks funky. So we've got some not perfect things, but you can clean that up for the most part. So here's what I did to clean it up. So you can see from this super sped up video. I ended up taking some files and some clippers, which I have back here. Whoop. So just little tiny clippers that I got from Lowe's, as well as little tiny hobby files. You clip off all of those strings and then file it down so that it's nice and smooth. You file off any, they call them zits. So it's like when the printer spits out a little chunk of plastic that's not fully liquefied yet. Can create those bumps on the surface. You file those off. I sharpened up the teeth, made sure that there was a clear define between each one of the gaps of the teeth. I made sure that my corners were nice and sharp and looked good, and that all of those different parts were filed to where they looked really nice. So you do all of that, and then you prime it, and this is where we can start to see the details. You see here? Now we're starting to see some details. The black calms down all that white, and you can actually start to see some of the stuff. And here's where we get to the fun part, painting. Now for this mimic, I went pretty simple. We've got brown, we've got red, we've got white for the teeth, and we've got a little bit of shining silver just to make it look like the chest itself was super enticing to adventurers. So we've got that paint job going on. And then to make the eyes and the tongue look like they're wet, like they're got saliva and just not lots of nasty stuff going on there, I actually mixed up a little bit of resin, plastic resin, like you would use to create molds. And I took a junk brush. Make sure you use a junk brush, one that you don't want to use ever again. And I brushed it onto the eyes, inside the mouth, over the teeth, and on the tongue. I did really quite a bit on the bottom so that it would kind of pool a little bit in some places to make it look like pooled saliva. That's gross and awesome. And it turned out really well. Here's a side-by-side comparison of my fresh off the printer printed mimic versus my fully prepped and painted mimic. So as you can see, this piece actually turned out really, really well, and I'm super proud and happy with it. But it took me a really long time to get there. This piece took 9 hours to print. It didn't fail, actually. I printed it once I got those settings really dialed in. I managed to print this on the first time, which was really, really exciting. It took 9 hours. So I started it in the evening and let it go overnight, woke up in the morning expecting it to be a mess, and was pleasantly surprised, which is nice. And then it took me about 4 hours to clean it up and paint it, let it dry and all of that. So I had a completed miniature done in about 12 hours. 4 of those were actually active hours working on this. So 3D printing, is it worth it? Well, if you like this kind of stuff, if you like a challenge, if you like creating your own things, if you like painting your own things, if you like the satisfaction of just knowing that you did something, absolutely it's worth it. I think that it's super fun, and even though I can get really frustrated, the feeling when you get it right and you have something cool like this done, you just can't beat it. It's a lot of fun. It is a hobby though. It's not necessarily going to save you that much money, and it's definitely going to use a lot more of your time than just going to the store and buying a pack of terrain. But if you enjoy this kind of thing, then yeah, it's totally worth it and you should totally do it. I just want you to have expectations for what your first print is probably going to be like, unlike what I had. My visions of grandeur seldom work out. So be prepared for your first 3D print to maybe be a little less awesome than what you have envisioned in your mind, and then don't give up. Keep trying, dial in those settings, and make sure to show me all the amazing stuff that you create later on. Until next time, my friends, may your game have advantage. Halfling Hannah here, signing out.